Now I'm looking at taking myself from a straddle planche to a full planche. But what I'm realizing the more I look into this is there's a very big difference between training from that initial can't do a planche to a tuck planche to a flat back to a frog to a straddle planche. There's suddenly a massive jump from the straddle planche to the full planche, and even a completely different training technique. So that's what I'm going to explore. I'm going to do a bit of a series on this as I get myself towards that full planche and try out some different training methods and see which one I find works best. So in the session I'm going to cover today, I turn my hands all the way to the back. Now, prerequisite here, I do one arm handstands. I've been handstanding, I've been planching, I've been doing handstand push-ups every day for the last 8 years. So I do have some conditioning of the elbows, of the forearms, of the wrists. So if you are following along with this and you're going to have a play with some of these exercises, just be a little bit careful. Now for this session, I set up on a balance rail. Now the balance rail is a little bit fatter than your normal bar, but they also allow me to adjust the height of them. So I played around with different heights. I actually started them off with around, I don't know, what is it, just thigh height, around knee height, just at a level where I can grab hold of the bar, so this way around, so underhand grip on the bar. And just went into a position that I'm comfortable with. So all the press handstand work I'm doing, tuck planche, there's more of a push upwards. So in this position, I can have my torso and my legs underneath me a little bit more, and I'm pushing up in that direction and just trying to get full protraction in there, just initially just to see whether I can lift my toes off. Now I could do this, I could get a little bit of float for a few seconds, but obviously that's more like press handstand position than a planche position. So then I tried raising the feet up. So I'm starting to go from this position with the torso to this position, maybe a little bit more. And this felt a little bit more relevant to the planche because I'm getting more of a protraction position. But it was a bit clunky positioning wise with the toes on the box. So then I moved down onto the floor. So this gives me a more of a vertical like push-up position, more of your traditional planche. And if you look here now, I've got my hips in line with the shoulders, which is obviously the ideal for the planche position. And I could get into a good protraction. This actually felt pretty good. I turned the toes over as well to emphasize more weight and load into the shoulders and hands. And then as a comparison, I went into my normal tuck planche position just to see whether I could hold with control with those hands and fingers turned all the way around. Now I could hold a comfortable tuck planche, but what I found was more about balance, because now I'm having to fine tune the balance like this, and I'm not so used to doing that on a bar. So I played around with a few sets like that, trying to find my balance, trying to open up a little bit towards a flat back position. And I also tried with a thin band round my hips attached to a ring. But again, it was just getting used to that instability in that wrist joint. So I'm used to the P-bars, but not having them this way around. I'm so used to having them that way. I'm not a big fan of using the bands once you get beyond the tuck planche, especially ones that are particularly fat. I'd rather do the exercise and get it closer to loading all of the weight into the shoulders and the arms and less weight in the legs. So I set up in the full planche position and tried it with the red band, but could only lift off for a couple of seconds and then lost a good position. Because I struggled with it on the floor, I tried raising the rail up onto one of the IKEA steps, and this made it like a higher hip position, but actually the hips stayed the same height and my feet came below me. So more of a closed hip position. So I don't have quite as long lever arm between my shoulder and my feet. Now I struggled to get any lift off here, but one thing I was doing was by taking the rail up higher, I was actually decreasing the help that I was getting from the band because of the height difference between my hands and the band attachment. But I tried again, and this time raised the bar up even higher on a different box. Now I can get some float time here, but the issue was I didn't get into quite as good protracted position in the back, and my arms are starting to want to bend. So to finish, I just went back to the floor and done more sets of that tuck planche position, so no band, and just getting used to balancing them with the hands in that opposite way around. And then I had to go at lowering from a tuck planche to a bent arm planche. So it was interesting to explore with the fingers around the other way. I did feel that it held me back a little bit because I was more focusing on the balance, especially when the toes came up, instead of conditioning the upper back, that protraction. So I'm not sure whether for me it's the best route towards the full planche. So I'm going to explore some other methods. I'll be interested to know from you guys if you're doing any planche work with your fingers pointing to the back, especially on the rail like that. Now I don't do too much on the bar. I've started to do a little bit more on the P-bars, but not on a single rail. So let me know if you have any comments or questions. Stick them down below. Thumbs up and subscribe would be appreciated, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.